Um, so obviously you've been in the business for a while. What have you noticed that has changed about the buyers of these condo units over the last couple of years? Are they getting smarter? Are they demanding more things in their space in terms of more doors, clear heights, efficiency in lighting, the shape of their unit? Like, what are you seeing? Sawtooth shipping? Like, is there anything that you see that is a must now in these deals that tenants are asking for and are now a standard that weren't a standard in the past? Do you want to explain any of those types of things?
Sure, sure. So as a segue into my answer, I do want to say one of the things that has changed in our business is we started out doing conversions and some other investing outside of the GTA, just in buy and hold and sort of long-term value add product. But one way we've pivoted the last 24 months is looking at getting it to, so rather than just buying existing product that's decades old and cleaning it up and converting title to strata title and selling it as condo units, we've been trying to explore new build. Some of our competitors have already done that. We currently have land under contract in Oshawa, in Milton, and in Halton regions, where we're looking at different projects, all three of those land deals will include light industrial condo as part of the project. So that's partly how we've pivoted our business. To answer your question, what are buyers looking for? You know, we're kind of limited with our older stock product as to, look, we can't really change a parking ratio on an existing building. It is what it is. I mean, if we have excess land, sure, we can pave over some green space, but we haven't come across any projects like that ourselves yet. We can't change clear heights easily. I know there are some people out there that do, what are they called, roof raisers or something like that, where you can add height to an old building. We haven't had the need for that. So our old projects range, like the projects we've converted the last few years that we bought as old stock, range from 14-foot clear height to 22 feet clear height. Whereas any of the newer product being built now, or similarly product we're looking to build ourselves, is all minimum 28-foot clear, some of it 32, some of it probably higher. And that's a function of not just the market, but also the bay sizes. You know, as you go from 2,500 square feet of a floor plan, you probably don't need 38-foot clear at that size. But if you get 10,000 feet, you know, something, 28, 32 feet and above, it just gives you more cubic inventory space. And that's a value for a lot of buyers out there. We haven't come across that yet. Certainly our buyers like to know, look, they've got a new roof with a warranty on every project we do. The parking lot's been studied by engineers who know asphalt and site services work. So every project we do, we've been validating the site, making sure they're not deficient. We're improving the parking lots. We're improving the ingress and egress radii. So that's if you go back to the 70s or 80s and someone built an industrial project, the curb cut coming into a project didn't have the same radii that municipalities are looking for now. And I believe that's a function of the size of trucks today versus what was more prominent or predominantly used back in the 70s or 80s. So look, all of our buyers want to see LED lighting. They want to be energy efficient. They want to keep their costs down. So, we tend to do that on all of our conversions. People like, no one really wants to buy a tired old unit that hasn't been cleaned up or painted, that looks dirty, decrepit. I mean, some people will buy it. It depends on the user. And there's a whole range of users out there, not just because of their business, plumbing distribution, plumbing parts distribution, or restaurant supplies, or whatever it is they're doing. People as investors just have different price thresholds, and if someone comes to us, and we've done this many times, and they say, look, I'll take that unit as is, but I only want to pay X. I know you're asking this, but I'll pay $10 less a foot. Often we've just said, fine, take it at the lower price, because to fix it up, I'm going to have to put in 10 to 15 bucks a foot. And it's not worth the effort, or maybe the buyer needs to get in ASAP and they'll do the work themselves, whatever it is. There's a whole range there, Jonathan. I don't think the market has changed that much in terms of buyer demands.
I want to ask you one last question before we wrap this up.
Mm-hmm.
What has your experience been with buyers on the financing side? Have they had trouble getting financing? Has financing been easy? Like, what is your experience on with buyers? Because you do so much volume within this small bay. What has your experience been on that side? And have you seen things change over the last, let's say, 4 years, from 2 years to 1 year to, let's say, this last 18 months when we've been going through this COVID thing?
Sure. Good question. Certainly we have had buyers who've had to delay closings because of their inability to get financing. I think buyers, just for simplicity, say, look, we bank with, big charter bank A or big charter bank B. They know our business. We're going to get debt with them. And they go down the road, and that paperwork seems to take a long time from what I've observed. Those banks do not move quickly, and there's no cutting corners. And some of our buyers, look, all of our buyers are very busy running their own businesses, right? They don't buy real estate as a day-to-day part of their business. So for a lot of them, it's a new thing. Like maybe they've bought a house or a residential condo before, but they've always leased commercial, and that mortgage process is different. It's more cumbersome. Seems to be more restrictive. So we've had more than a couple, maybe a handful of closings get delayed for a matter of weeks or a month because someone has said, hey, my banker said they were going to come through. They didn't come through. Now I've got to look at an alternative lender.
Right.
And they go to a credit union, or they go to BDC or a private lender. There's lots of options out there. We've seen the full gamut, soup to nuts. But by and large, I think people who commit to the notion of buying a condo, commercial condo, industrial condo with us, already know their business is viable enough to warrant taking on the added debt. And so it hasn't been a problem. It's, as I said, it's delayed some closings, but we haven't lost any serious buyers because of that.
Perfect.
And of course, sorry, just to bring that full circle, debt is as cheap as it's ever been. I mean, without splitting hairs over where the market was 6 or 8 months ago, if you look at a long-term interest rate chart, we're still right at the bottom. Maybe we're not exactly where we were for a small time period during, the peak of the COVID pandemic, but look, debt is as cheap as it's ever been. And I think people largely, I think a lot of people see the debt market the way I have for 13 years. So with the '08 crash, which I worked through, I think you might have still been in kindergarten back then, Jonathan. I'm not sure, but
high school. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. My math isn't so good this morning. Back then I'm sure I read this somewhere, but agreed with it. I don't think I'm a genius for coming up with this myself. But the world's balance sheet, country to country, became very heavily debt levered in '08 to get the world out of that crisis. And COVID has been something similar in that the entire world system is, I want to say over levered, because I don't know how you define over at that, universal scale, but there's more debt in the system than there ever was. And it's as cheap as it's ever been. And because of the quantum of debt, I don't think any of the authorities that control the policy surrounding interest rates can really move it up significantly. In the '80s, interest rates hit 18%, 20%. It was a totally different world. I don't even know if we're going to 4 or 5% anytime soon. I think they're going to stay quite low, because if that number moves up just a little bit more, or a little bit more than that, or a little bit more than that, and you're at 4% or 4.5% or 5%, I don't know what the number is. Don't quote me, please. But the whole system falls apart, right? People can't afford their mortgages at home. They can't afford their corporate debt. And this isn't just the people I deal with who are largely mom and pop shops. Like, I don't have Amazon coming to me buying a condo unit. I've got, as I've said, an auto repair shop, or a body shop, or someone who's, doing some metal fabrication, or whatever it is. These people have different math on their day-to-day financial statements than a large international company does. So we're, being in that small bay industrial space is a very, very different space. When we look at the conversation we're having about industrial as a whole, Jonathan, we're in a certain niche of it. And a lot of what I think we've talked about today, and by the way, thank you very much for having me on this podcast. It's always a pleasure to hang with you. And I appreciate this opportunity. But a lot of what we're talking about clearly will not translate to, what some of the big REITs are doing in the mid bay and large bay space, and what some of our, sort of competitors are doing, building larger product. It's not space we're currently in. We're looking at some of it, but I think anything we do in the foreseeable future will still have a small bay and strata component to it.
Right. Well, you might as well stay in the field that you like, right? Or the one that you understand and the one that you know.
You have to, yeah, or you get shellacked.
Well, I guess we'll wrap things up. I want to say thank you for joining me on the Industrial Insider. If you have any questions, you can email me at jonathan@leonard.com, or give me a call at 416-471-0904. And thanks for tuning in for the Industrial Insider. Have a great day.